And today we are setting the stage for a critical analysis of Group 216.
216.
Oh,
So,
okay.
215 groups have already been through this process.
The stakes are getting higher, and this group presents us with four really distinct contenders. Third by the Lumineers.
Perfect Contradiction by Paloma Faith.
Flicker by Niall Horan.
And Legends of Rock, News of the World, which is a various artist compilation.
So what immediately defines the narrative of Group 216 is this massive jump in overall quality.
Oh, absolutely. Greenstocks noted that Group 215 was, and I'm quoting here, a miserable effort.
Ouch. Who was in that one?
Albums by Dio and Christine and the Queens that were, let's just say, dismissed without much ceremony.
Oh.
So the shift here is palpable.
I'll say.
He observes that any one of these four albums in Group 216 would have just breezed through the previous group.
So suddenly the challenge wasn't deciding which terrible album to, begrudgingly keep.
Exactly. It was, and this is the key phrase he uses, deciding which decent album to lose.
And that's a much more interesting problem.
It is. This transformation from a low-stakes dismissal to a difficult choice between genuine quality albums, it just makes the entire analysis significantly richer.
A quality problem is always the most interesting kind of problem. The stakes are raised when you have to choose between genuine contenders, which means this specific album quest is going to tell us a lot more about the nuances of long-term musical value rather than just identifying the obvious duds.
Right. We're looking at a genuine battle between, pop soul power, acoustic narrative, commercial polish, and classic rock nostalgia.
Exactly.
So let's begin our album quest analysis by examining the two primary contenders that really set the quality ceiling for the group. We should probably start with the album that ultimately defined the technical excellence here.
Which was Paloma Faith's Perfect Contradiction.
That's the one.
So, Perfect Contradiction. The analysis establishes this album as, quote, musically rock solid.
Right.
And the source material doesn't hesitate to attribute its core strength entirely to her excellent vocal delivery.
It's all about her voice.
It seems like she isn't just singing the songs. She is the undeniable technical engine driving this entire complex project.
She is the force of nature here. And this isn't just a casual assessment. Greenstocks was already a bit wary, noting that Faith's music isn't typically his preferred genre.
But she'd already won him over once before.
She had. She'd already surprised him by winning round one, Group 198, with her previous album, Do You Want the Truth or Something Beautiful?
Okay, so that's a critical context point. Her music, through sheer undeniable technical quality, is forcing an objective win over his personal, comfortable preference.
That is the essence of a good quest methodology, isn't it?
That structural element, the forced listening, it's what compels you to judge the art itself, separate from your usual listening ecosystem.
And with Perfect Contradiction, the author hits on this rhetorical question that I think speaks volumes about modern music consumption.
Right.
Why do so many of the tracks sound familiar?
Right. I thought that was a great point.
This point deserves a little elaboration, I think. The familiarity could stem from two really distinct sources. One is, subconscious consumption via background radio over the years.
So you've just sort of absorbed it passively without ever actively choosing to put the album on.
Exactly. But the other possibility, which is more flattering to the artist, is that the music is so expertly composed and structured that it just sounds right upon the very first intentional listen.
It's the sonic equivalent of a perfectly resolved chord progression or a perfectly balanced composition.
You've got it. And the production choices elevate this perfectly balanced composition into something truly maximalist.
We are talking about a big sound.
Oh, yeah.
The description provided is incredibly vivid. The music sounds like you're standing in a small, intimate venue, but the band is this oversized jazz pop ensemble that is blowing instruments through the amp all the way up to 11.
That image just perfectly encapsulates the production style. We're not talking about simple, filtered pop production here. We're talking about rich, complex arrangements.
Brass sections, strings.
Lush string arrangements, layered instrumentation that make the entire soundscape feel overwhelming, but in a highly controlled, sophisticated way. This immediately establishes Perfect Contradiction as the maximalist contender in the group.
And where does Paloma Faith fit into this gigantic sound? I mean, does she get swallowed by the Volume 11 production?
It's quite the opposite, actually. The vocal analysis confirms she possesses a sensationally powerful and technical vocal delivery that doesn't fight the ensemble.
It integrates with it.
It integrates seamlessly with this enormous room-filling soundscape. Her technique is just that precise. It's enough to cut through all the complexity of the arrangements.
But I have to ask, though, Doesn't that kind of technical perfection sometimes lead to a lack of, I don't know, raw vulnerability that the other contenders might deliver? Is the sound almost too controlled?
That's a fair, critical point, and it's the exact tension Greenstock had to navigate.
Okay.
However, the emotional context seems to hold the key here. The subtext is consistently romantic and highly charged.
So it's not just technical for technique's sake.
Not at all. By applying such high-level technical skill to these deeply vulnerable, universal themes of love and heartbreak, the production gains real weight. It prevents the big sound from becoming empty stadium filler.
And the tracks he highlights really show that.
They do. Tracks like Ready for the Good Life, Other Woman, Mouth to Mouth, and The Bigger You Love, The Harder You Fall, they all carry that strong emotional backbone, proving the material had the necessary depth to withstand repeated scrutiny.
So if Paloma Faith was building a musical cathedral on a jazz pop foundation, let's pivot sharply to the runner-up, the Lumineers' third. They are the complete opposite. They're like the whispered secret around a lonely, flickering campfire.
Absolutely. The contrast is dramatic. Where Faith was volume 11, the Lumineers are intimate and measured.
The author's first impression was that third was a bit weird.
And that likely stems from this deliberate reduction in sound. We should probably first address the title. It's their third album, yes, but the title also aligns with its structure.
It's intentional.
Very. It's intentionally divided into 3 distinct chapters or parts, and each one focuses on the musical narrative of this one family, the Sparks family.
And that narrative structure is central, but musically it still found broad appeal. It reached number 2 on the American Billboard chart.
It did. Yet the author's expectation was completely subverted. He remembered the Lumineers from the Brits doing a pleasant, run-of-the-mill pop number.
And this was nothing like that.
This is a great point about how expectations, memory, and an album's true identity can just completely diverge. He humorously suggested he might have been drinking too much during the Brits and remembered the wrong band entirely.
I can relate to that.
Because third is nothing like that. The band deliberately chose to step away from their more commercially friendly sound to create something quite somber and melancholy.
So let's delve deeper into the instrumentation that creates this atmosphere. It's stripped down, right? Focused intensely on piano and semi-acoustic guitar.
The instrumentation is absolutely key to establishing the dark mood. Greenstock noted the scarcity of bass guitar, the tightly controlled use of percussion, and only a dash of violin here and there.
It was a very deliberate, sparse sound.
And that sound is almost entirely controlled by the piano. Crucially, the piano is described as being mostly in the high register. This tends to prevent the music from sitting in a comfortable, warm sonic space.
High register piano often conveys tension, sparseness.
Or, as the author noted, a quite dark feeling, especially when it's used minimally. It's all about atmosphere over density.
And that controlled, intimate atmosphere is what defines the album. It's designed to be played around a campfire, not in a massive venue.
Right.
But here's the surprising part of the analysis, and now let's pivot to the most surprising critical connection. Despite the acoustic, stripped-down setting, the author found profound parallels to arena rock acts.
And this is where the depth of the Lumineers' writing really shines through. Greenstock noted similarities to the dramatic scope of The Killers.
The Killers.
The Killers. And the narrative weight of Bruce Springsteen. Even more surprisingly, he found a Jeff Buckley vibe on tracks like My Cell.
So how does an acoustic, melancholy album evoke stadium rock icons? That seems like a stretch.
It's through the narrative density and the scale of the emotion, not the volume. The songs feel epic, even when they're stripped down.
The source material nails the narrative element, calling it an engaging atmosphere, driven by what Greenstock humorously describes as some kind of weird redneck soap opera.
And that storytelling, focused on the dysfunctional Sparks family, provides the sustained depth that's so necessary for the Quest's repeated listens. It's an album you listen to not just for the music, but for the plot.
Like a musical novel.
Exactly. And tracks like Gloria and Jimmy Sparks are identified as excellent examples of this narrative depth.
And that potent combination of storytelling and melancholy atmosphere proved incredibly competitive.
It did. Third was only a whisker behind Perfect Contradiction in the final tally.
So we have our 2 advancing albums, one delivering maximalist technical perfection, the other, this powerful, intimate narrative. That sets an extremely high bar for the other 2 contenders.
Indeed. We now move into the second pair, the 2 albums that really struggled with Quest's endurance test.
Right. Now we turn our attention to the highly commercial entry that arrived in the Quest via a route that's, well, All too familiar to many listeners, Niall Horan's Flicker.
The context here is just vital. This wasn't a discovery or a chosen purchase. It was a Christmas stocking filler.
A gift.
A gift from the author's wife with the confident assertion, "You'll like it." So this establishes the context of forced listening outside of personal preference, similar to Paloma faith, but coming from the commercial pop world.
And that context leads directly into Greenstarox's broader, really satirical commentary on the music industry's pop machine.
Oh, he has some fun with this.
He takes a jab at One Direction, comparing them to the Bay City Rollers of the teenies, the 2010s. It's the classic critique of manufactured stardom.
It's a cynical observation, but it's a highly relevant one. The author suggests the true achievement for mankind isn't the musical output of these groups, but the fact that a highly skilled group of marketing execs can take any 5 random blokes and mold them into global pop icons, regardless of genuine, intrinsic musical factors.
So the marketing product often precedes, and sometimes entirely dictates, the artistic reality.
That's the argument. So, with all that baggage, how did Flicker hold up? Did the cynical assessment of its origins color the listening?
You'd think it would.
Surprisingly, the review of the album itself is quite generous. Greenstarox committed to the repeated listening required and concluded, "It ain't half bad at all."
High praise.
The musical assessment pegs it as laid-back, gentle MOR. And when we say MOR, we mean middle of the road, highly polished, deliberately inoffensive, and generally suitable for a broad mainstream audience.
It's the sound of professional competence.
And I suppose that's exactly what you'd expect from a post-boy band solo effort. It is professionally produced, and Horan is recognized as an excellent musician with a lot of potential.
It definitely provides some highlight moments.
It does. The opener, On the Loose, is specifically praised for being a strong opener, which is a small but critical detail. The musical unveiling has to capture you immediately.
Right, you need that hook.
Then Slow Hands is noted as contemporary with a catchy chorus, and the vocal tracks Flicker and Fire Away are called lovely. The duet with Maren Morris, Seeing Blind, is also mentioned as nice.
So it hits all the required notes for professional, pleasant pop?
It does.
But here's where the critical flaw emerges, the point that prevented its advancement. The issue of brevity and depth. It's only 35 minutes long.
And that prompted Greenstarox to ask, why so little material?
This is a major structural critique. He compares the short runtime to Captain Blunt on how to short sell your fans.
He does not hold back. He suggests a deliberate lack of value. This brevity, combined with what he deemed lesser quality spread across the album, is considered rather telling.
And the implication is simple.
If an artist can only manage 35 minutes of material, they were likely struggling for output and had to pad the record just to achieve an acceptable album length.
But I want to push back on that idea for a second. For a casual listener, isn't 35 minutes sometimes perfect? It respects your time, it's digestible, especially for middle-of-the-road pop.
That's a fair point.
So why is brevity an automatic disqualifier in the album quest?
Because the album quest is an endurance test. The rule set demands repeated listening and fierce ranking. Greenstarox argues that for an album to be under 45 minutes, it needs to be wall-to-wall killer.
Every track has to be amazing.
Exactly. If the tracks aren't complex or layered enough to sustain interest across multiple listens, that brevity signals a lack of substance. The analysis suggests that the tracks on Flicker, while superficially pleasant at first, rely on very simple repeated chord structures and lyrical themes.
And that lack of structural complexity or depth, it just manifests itself on repeat listens. The critique specifies that tracks like This Town and Too Much to Ask become borderline tedious.
Precisely. It's the classic example of commercial polish lacking the staying power required for deep engagement. The music is designed for initial appeal, not long-term analytical scrutiny.
It just wears thin under the pressure of repetition.
It does. Which brings us to the fourth contender, entering the ring with a completely different set of structural flaws.
Yeah.
The Various Artists compilation, Legends of Rock, News of the World.
Another random one.
This compilation is yet another example of the sheer randomness of Greenstarox's library. It's described as yet another giveaway disc, noting he has stacks of these, still needing to be processed by the Quest randomizer.
So the challenge here is the inherent inconsistency of compilations.
Right, and on paper, it looks solid. It's listing foundational rock anthems.
You've got Boston's More Than a Feeling,
Motorhead's Ace of Spades,
Alice Cooper's Poison,
and Santana's Black Magic Woman.
So why did the inclusion of these undeniable hits not guarantee an advance?
Well, while the peaks are high, the compilation's floor is often lower, and the collection lacks any thematic cohesion.
It's just a jumble of songs.
It is. A classic rock compilation, by its nature, often includes tracks that are dated or simply don't match the listener's specific preference for that era. So while Ace of Spades is raw and essential Motorhead, and Poison is definitive Alice Cooper, their sonic identities are wildly different from, say, Santana's smooth, Latin-fused rock.
Or Boston's arena-ready polish.
Exactly. This inconsistency prevented the album from creating a cohesive atmosphere, unlike the focused narratives of Faith and the Lumineers.
And then the list introduces a point of contention that allows Greenstocks to launch into his most fascinating critique.
Yes, he says, an air, Buck Rogers by Feeder.
The tone is palpable.
This is where the analysis takes a sharp turn into music philosophy and marketing cynicism. The author first critiques the band name Feeder, calling it rather ominous.
That's pretty funny.
He speculates humorously. Is it referencing the man-eating plant Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors? Or perhaps a creepy 10-year-old vampire? This just highlights an unnerving vagueness he finds in the moniker.
But the core issue is focused on the song title itself, Buck Rogers.
Right.
And now we pivot to the deep dive on naming conventions. The author questions the practice of naming a song after a pop culture icon without actually referencing that icon in the song's content.
It breaks the implied contract between the artist and the listener, he argues. The listener assumes a thematic or musical connection when a recognized name is used.
Buck Rogers was a futuristic spaceman with an overly attached butler droid thingy.
And Greenstocks humorously asks if Buck Rogers ever remembered driving a Jaguar with a CD player, or indeed drinking cider from a lemon, details from the song.
Which he did not.
No. Since the song makes no effort to connect to the sci-fi identity, the author perceives the name as a superficial attachment, a gimmick.
So this perceived naming mistake is connected to what he believes is a broader, cynical marketing ploy. This is where the analogy to Prefab Sprout's album Steve McQueen comes in.
Exactly. He suggests this technique, attaching a recognized, beloved name to your product, is a shortcut.
And he makes this extreme, though he admits unverified claim.
That 10 million people bought Steve McQueen because they thought Steve McQueen was singing on it.
Which is unlikely.
The sheer absurdity of the claim illustrates the underlying principle. Attaching a celebrity or cultural touchstone is an effortless way to capture market attention, regardless of the artistic output or thematic relevance.
So for a quest focused on musical quality, such apparent cynical manipulation degrades the perceived integrity of the whole album.
It does. The critique isn't about the sound of Buck Rogers. It's about the perceived intent behind the track's title, which suggests a lack of faith in the music itself to draw attention.
The intent cheapens the product.
Correct. Yet despite these spurious choices, and the author knows he isn't even going to start on the inclusion of Nickelback's Feeling Way Too Damn Good, the compilation still contains moments of sheer transcendence.
That transcendence is attributed almost entirely to Boston's More Than a Feeling.
The praise for this track is unique within the sources. Greenstocks singles it out as more than a great song.
And the ultimate compliment is reserved for it.
That this song will still be a great song even when the sun has exhausted its fuel.
That is a remarkable measure of quality, something that transcends temporal and even cosmic events.
It's the ultimate praise.
So in summary, we have a compilation that is erratic, suffers from poor thematic cohesion, is likely the product of questionable marketing strategies, but holds within it one single, undeniable, timeless peak of quality.
And he assesses it as a fun, if lightweight, collection. And that single peak proved incredibly effective in the ranking, especially against an album like Flicker, which had no peaks, only a high, flat plane of professionalism.
So we have reviewed the field, we've analyzed the big, technical pop soul of Paloma Faith, the somber, narrative, acoustic work of the Lumineers, the short, professional amour of Niall Horan, and the erratic, high-peaked compilation of classic rock.
A very diverse crew.
It is. Now, let's synthesize the results and look at the official final rankings for Round 1, Group 216.
Okay. The final placement confirms the high quality of the top two, which were separated by the smallest margin, really indicating the difficulty of the choice.
So the official ranking is as follows. Taking the coveted #1 spot and advancing
is Perfect Contradiction by Paloma Faith.
And #2, also advancing to the next round.
3 by the Lumineers.
Okay, so our top 2 are through. #3, eliminated but putting up a respectable fight, primarily due to the strength of its highlights.
Legends of Rock, News of the World, various artists.
And in fourth place, eliminated despite being a professionally produced effort that surpassed initial expectations.
Flicker by Niall Horan.
Let's discuss the separation between the top two. Why did the maximalist approach of Paloma Faith just edge out the narrative depth of the Lumineers?
Well, it came down to sheer, unrelenting technical quality and scope. Faith's album delivered that overwhelming soundscape, combined with a technical, powerful vocal delivery that maintained a sense of awe and scale throughout the whole record.
Whereas the Lumineers' redneck soap opera vibe was deeply captivating and offered excellent storytelling.
It did, but Paloma Faith's album simply packed a bigger, more technically flawless punch that stood up slightly better to the relentless critical repetition required by the album quest.
So it was a victory for perfection over atmosphere.
But only by a whisker.
The comparison between third and fourth place is arguably more instructive for the listener who's interested in critical longevity. Why did a flawed compilation album beat a short, professionally polished pop album?
Because the flaw in Flicker was entirely one of endurance. At 35 minutes, its lack of sustained quality meant that the middle section quickly became borderline tedious. It just failed the repetition test.
And the compilation?
The compilation, despite its errors, its lack of cohesion, and its suspicious marketing choices, contained tracks that provided specific, undeniable, monumental peaks of quality, chiefly More Than a Feeling.
And that one song was enough.
That single, timeless moment was enough to outweigh the perceived shallowness and tediousness of the professionally pleasant but ultimately disposable Niall Horan album.
This analysis provides a powerful insight into the paradox of quality, doesn't it? It tells us that consistent pleasantness is less valuable than inconsistent brilliance when an album is subjected to this kind of forensic, repeated listening.